It is January 14th, 2021, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Insiders.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Chris Quinn, coming from, not Studio B, Basement A of the Quinn residence. For the first time ever. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. But yes, sadly, I am not at the Co-Prosperity Sphere today. I still want to thank the fearless leaders of Lumpen, Misters Jamie Trecker and Logan Bay, and I want to thank the entire Lumpen staff for having this show on. For those listening for the first time, welcome. Going to be an interesting show, an interesting first show, but this is the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable, and it's the year-end show. It's a special show. It's one of the most anticipated shows of the year, and it's one that we've been trying to get out for, a couple weeks. It's been a rocky one. It's been an interesting 2020, so I guess it should be an interesting 2021 as well. But some things are always going to be the same. This show is essentially me trying to bring together some of my favorite people in the industry and talk about beer industry related topics from people whose opinions I respect and admire from all around the beer industry, whether they are people who are selling beer, making beer, distributing beer, writing about beer, marketing beer, anything that there is to do with beer. So with that, I'll I don't know if I should get right into my esteemed guest list. I should probably give some backstory. I don't know. What do you say, Ed? I guess I should just come out and say it. So I'm in my basement because I have tested positive for COVID. I'm away from the Beer Temple. I am living in Casa de Quinn basement, so I can't even go upstairs. And I was laying in bed being bored, and I fell asleep. So so we started the show a half hour late. I got that pang of panic, like a wave of panic went over me when I turned on and when I woke up and I saw the time. And so I'm a little embarrassed right now. We're also delayed an entire week from the recording time because the fall of civilization occurred last Wednesday. So we're determined. We're putting the show out, and we're just going to do this thing. So we're going to follow a slightly different format than usual. But one thing is we'll still introduce the guests in the standard order, which is in order of seniority. The senior most member of the panel overall, although I don't know who the senior most member who's done the most year-end shows, but I do have a guest who probably knows this, but it's not my first guest that I'm going to announce. Mr. EdMar. What's up, man? Love the mane. Love the flowing mane, man.
You know, I decided not to cut my hair until this shit's over, but I think I'm just going to do it for the transition next week.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to start emulating Ruben Kincaid, who is a colleague of mine who's got a beautiful mane of hair,
Yes.
shiny, kind of slight purple tinge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. I don't feel like a qualified participant in some ways. I feel like I've been missing this entire year, and that I have nothing to contribute. So look forward to that.
Oh, good. That's good. I'm glad you're getting that out of the way early.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Okay.
Yeah. But
Well,
I'm very excited to announce, though, Chris, that in the year ahead, you'll be back here at Studio B,
yes.
Studio K, and then this new studio thing here that's being built for this new concept of doing live video and audio broadcast for Lumpen Radio.
Okay. What is that? Tell me just very briefly.
Well, we just have plans to try to harness our use of these streaming technologies to do live video audio for the first time. We've always wanted to do it. We just always it was kind of done like random DJs or producers would do it, but now we'll give everyone the capability of live streaming.
Oh, great.
So
That's awesome.
Video and audio. So we're working on it, but this is something we're looking forward to in the next year. So when you come back here, it's going to be great. You'll have more buttons to push.
Awesome. Good to hear. Well, thanks for coming on, even though you're going to contribute nothing. So I appreciate that and look forward to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll contribute things that have nothing to do with any of the topics.
Ed, if there's anything I know about you, it'll be a very flavorful and colorful nothing.
Thank you. Are you?
It'll be very, I won't realize until hours later that you contributed nothing because of the flash and show of it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it comes off really well.
Yeah.
But later, when you actually listen on this podcast,
like,
you wonder why
nothing
why
there.
Is this guy burning time?
Well, thank you. My next guest is man. Is this how many times have you been on the show? Is this third year end or
this is number 3?
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a quarterback. I was trying to think of a quarterback who had won 3 Super Bowls to compare myself to, but I couldn't think of one.
A 3-time.
I don't think anyone's done it 3 in a row, but you got Brady, Roethlisberger.
No, but I mean exactly 3.
Yeah.
Roethlisberger's 2.
You're a three-peater, Doug.
Yeah. But it wasn't in a these weren't 3 in a row.
Joe Montana, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe Joe Montana.
No, you're 3 in a row. You're one of the first three-peaters. I think Bulls is where you want to go.
Well, let's be real. He lobbies for it subtly throughout the year. He just
Troy Aikman.
I lobbied for this one, but I don't think I lobbied for the other 2.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's
if Doug wasn't on this show, then we might as well just end it right now. That's how I feel about it. I'm not even going to listen to this podcast if I didn't see Doug Veliky, fucking beer cruncher. Oops, I already violated the rules of broadcast.
You did that beforehand, but
yeah,
he brings a real credibility to this podcast,
this show. Yeah, this S show. Yeah. Well, thank you, Doug. Anything you want to say in your intro, or should we just get on to the Green Dragon?
We can get on with it.
Okay. My next guest, known as the Green Dragon by many, is Mr. Brian Kerby. Somebody I've been trying to get on this damn show. I don't know. I think actually it's your fault, Brian. The reason I fell asleep and woke up late. I don't like to lay blame on other people, but the way it's gone, I think it has to fall at you, because you're the one. You and me are the only 2 things that are repeating to all the mistakes that happen that occur whenever I try to have you on. So I guess
appreciate that. Last week
I
was
forgive
not
you.
my fault,
Yeah.
But if I'm responsible for you taking a power nap, so be it.
Oh my
God. That. I don't think I was on at all in 2020, but
good.
Thank you for reaching out for the end of the year, though. It really kind of allows me to, put it all
2
together.
Right? This is your
That's
repeat, right?
Yeah.
Got a power team here. So
The real
cool.
deal. There's gonna be. I mean, you should have been part of the first show. I mean, there was some really good content. I hope we can repeat it.
I know. Act like it's new and fresh and just coming right out of your mouth the first time you say it. That's the
Yeah,
only
I can
time
probably
ask.
use less words this time to convey my points. So
Perfect. Yeah. Edit.
2020 bad.
There you go. Caveman talk. That's how you don't
Ah!
yeah, you just use literally less words, including in individual sentences. So so what we'll do is in the year-end show we follow the same format every year. So what we're going to do is, rather than talk about what beers we're drinking, we're going to talk about our 2020 beers of the year, and then we're going to go into our stories of the year, and then we'll look at our predictions from last year, the end of show, and then finally we'll do our predictions for this year. So let's just get right into it, because we're we're behind a little bit already. We've put out our stories of the year and everything like that already, but one thing we haven't done is we haven't revealed our beers of the year. So does anyone want to go first with their beers of the year? No?
You know what? I totally came unprepared to this.
You son of, you want to go last,
thing.
and then what you do
Yeah.
is you don't say anything and you go last and you don't admit it. That's normally what a decent pro would do.
But you know, as I really, any beer that was made in 2020 is the beer of the year. And I want to thank all the breweries out there that managed to pivot 5 trillion times, keep their businesses going, keep their channels going for making anything. So what do you think about that?
I think
I would say any beer consumed in 2020 was the beer of the year. I mean, goodness gracious. But I do have one, if I can go.
Go for it.
I've been reconciling my 2020 for the last few weeks. It's never fun, but it's really nice to get all that data into play. And one thing that I found was our M43 from Old Nation was our beer of the year, literally, in terms of volume. And
Can you give me one of those?
Sure. Here you go. So yeah, with it being our top beer, not only do I enjoy drinking it, and yes, it's some bit of shameless self-promotion as
Yeah, let me see that can one more time. Put that can up there. There you go.
You can see some dents. I don't get to drink the good stuff. I drink the ones that fall off the back of the truck, literally.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But we could sell a lot more of this beer if we wanted to. But it's one of those things where we just like to keep it where it's just right. Like it is what it is, let it be. But in a world of like people chasing the haze, for this thing to be around 3 or 4 years and to still be like a steady go-to for us and obviously the market as, we're getting the pull through on it. I thought it deserved a little praise. And so I'm going to be drinking that, and cheers into that tonight.
All right. Cheers to that. And yeah. Cheers.
I got one, Chris.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I came a little unprepared. I forgot about the beer of the year.
Oh.
So, but I quickly came to what I think is a one that absolutely deserves to be mentioned. So a lot of times I give like a breakout star in the major wholesale world. Like I remember I did Founder's IPA many years, all day IPA like 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I was on the show. And but no, I think with everything went on this year, the Black is Beautiful beer to me is like a great candidate to mention as the beer of the year, which was, I think probably everybody listening by now knows about the project that was started by Weathered Souls in Texas, and just the number of breweries and the amount of money that was raised for amazing causes, for their own, like local causes of their choice. And, everything that was done as part of that project and how deep it went was impressive. And so that's going to be my beer of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice, Doug. And I think, Brian, that beer you're talking about is a great choice as well. But yeah, I mean, really just the fact that breweries got together to make these kind of commitments towards these philanthropic efforts is really a big story of the year as well, right? So many breweries have done so many, and distributors have done so much to help other people. So that's another great story about 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, mine's a little bit more literal, but the cool thing about the beer of the year is it's always whatever people ask, like what makes it the beer of the year, and it's really a personal choice, and I think because you get many different answers that way. For me, I also have it's kind of like 2020 was such an odd year. I have two. I went a little bit well unusual this year as well. I actually have two. I don't know if I've ever done it before, that I've had two of them before, but the year was just odd, and it was kind of divided up, but there was a kind of a theme, and I went with pretty literal for our shop, a little bit more than in previous years, but I think it shows a general trend. I have to say for us at the Beer Temple that Rothaus Pils was the beer of the year. Certainly was the beer of the first half of the year. It came in and was just selling at unbelievable rates, and still is when we can get it. We can't really get it anymore, which welcome to distribution in 2020. So but I think it's like here in Chicago, it's a little bit more expensive than other places. I think it's $14.99 for a 6-pack of an imported German beer, and we were selling 60 cases a week at its height. It was just absolutely bananas, and even months and months later, we were selling 5 to 10 cases every single week of a German import Pilsner at a high dollar value. Unbelievable. The second half of the year, it was relative newcomer to the Chicago scene, Midwest Coast's brown ale. We have been selling for probably the past 6 months or so, 2 to 3 cases or more every single week, pulling consistently, and without really too much extra promotion, of an English brown ale from just a brewery here in Chicago that has made a name for itself, or certainly trying to make a name for itself, brewing more traditional English styles. And that for us is more week over week over week over week than we are selling of Ninja vs. Unicorn or Son of Juice from Maplewood, two much bigger brands overall. But it's like consistent, sustained kind of pulling. So I would say those are the two beers of the year for me. Both of them, I think what they have in common are they are kind of stylistic surprises. They for me to be as popular as they are and consistently kind of just pulling. So and I'm very happy, selfishly, to see it. I've been, and I'm sure this will continue probably in this show. I've been a pretty vocal, I guess bitching is kind of the way to put it, about this lack, in my opinion, this lack of stylistic diversity. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I want to see something new, and I'm glad to see it. And Ed always throws up his hands, gives me the middle finger, says, "We don't even make IPAs. What are you talking about?" And then, so
maybe leave it there because we're going to get more into this as part of other parts of the show.
Yes. So that's my those are my two beers of the year. Could not be more happy for both of them. I guess I wish I could get some fresh Rot House in. So we finally did get some in, and we sent it back. I'll say that.
Where does that come in from, Chris?
Lakeshore and Gambrinus. I'll just throw everyone under the bus. I mean, it's the truth. Whatever.
Well, it's not their fault. It was probably just customs.
Yeah, I guess it could be. Yeah, we'll say that. We'll say that's what it was. Okay. So from there, something that well, let's just go right into the stories of the year. I guess there's probably going to be some similarities, some consistencies here in the stories of the year, given that it was such a doozy of a year. But who knows? What I did is ask everybody to bring a story or some stories of the year. We're going to start. I'm going to let everybody introduce their own. I see that there's a few. Why don't we start with the top one? I know I had like, oh yeah. So I think everyone did it. Okay. So I only had one except for maybe EdMar. No, he did it. He did it well. Who wants to go and give their 2020 story of the year first?
Should I nominate Doug?
Doug?
I'll happily go first. So I didn't necessarily pick there's a lot of really important stories that we've talked about on this show throughout the year. So I didn't so much want to rehash a lot of the like changing of business models and COVID, like that stuff is huge. And so I just picked one that personally to me is a fascinating story of the year. And to me, that's the what we've seen over especially the last 5 years, what I call the like rapid evolution of beer styles, and beer styles iterating and iterating so quickly that you couldn't keep up with them. To me, that's really in part because of COVID, but I think it was getting there anyway, but COVID really brought it to a stop.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing, like, so since a lot of breweries were late on the hazy IPA, that they thought it would be here and gone, and then when they realized it had staying power and now everybody has a hazy IPA, nobody's making that same mistake twice, and everybody for a while was jumping on and trying anything that was new. And what I'm seeing is a lot of this new stuff since the haze that goes beyond hazy IPA. I'm feeling that it's not working, and the trends of COVID are really causing us to hit the reset button in a way. And so what you were starting to get at, Chris, and the reason I asked you to slow down is like this nostalgia of you could talk about the anxiety that a lot of people are feeling right now, and do they just want something more reliable? Do they want something that makes them happy? And that's maybe like the memory of the beers from when they first started getting into craft beer. All this stuff is kind of similar, rationale, but just this overall desire to go back to a lot of the styles that you've talked about, we've all talked about there being a lack of. And to me, that's been super fascinating. So like there was one day in June, just my one personal example, there was a day in June where I sat down at my desk at work, and I didn't put any thought into this at all, hadn't even really considered it. And I was just like, went onto Twitter and wrote, and this was in June, and I said, I have a feeling that the black IPA is going to make a big comeback this fall, not as like this year-round hazy phenomenon, but like the equivalent of like a Mars drink, how everybody gets a Mars in September and October. I think the black IPA is going to be this thing this year. I think we're ready for it. And I said this because of there had already been a few months of this nostalgia for the, like, Two Hearted is a great example of one where this rush for people to go back and drink Two Hearted again, who had maybe gotten away from it and drinking more contemporary beers. But that's what kind of got me in this black IPA mode.
That's what did it. Yeah, I was going to ask you what made you say black IPA, because I remember when you said it, and it's bore out to be dead on, absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, and admittedly, you know, when I said that, it is the most liked tweet I've ever written, which I think is fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah, most retweeted, most everything. It blew up. And then it became this like thing in the beer Twitter world where anytime a black IPA would come up, people would start tagging me, and it just became this thing. And then
Really?
so I don't know if some of this like accidentally like got willed into existence, or if it was going to happen anyway. And I'm not saying I created it, but like other people started running with us, and it just started like coming up a lot. And I thought it was fascinating. And then I'm enjoying one right now. A friend of the show, Andy Carter from the California Homebrewers Association, sent me one from Modern Times. They made a black IPA, so that's what I'm drinking now. Thank you, Andy. And so this is like one example, but just this trend of, you know, it's a combination of all beer styles kind of like, to me, hitting the end of the road on the silliness. That doesn't mean IPAs aren't going to, that doesn't mean the hop farmers aren't going to keep coming out with cool new hops, new ways to get better flavors out, all that. But the example of like a sour IPA, like I think we're done trying to make the next,
or the brute IPA, or the
black, the red. And it's not that those all won't still be out there. I think we're at the end of the road, and we're kind of heading back in the cycle back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that quite would have happened without COVID, but I'm very confident that COVID got us there back to the beginning in a hurry. So I think we're basically hitting the reset button on beer styles. And I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's, I certainly hope you're right. With the black IPA, holy cow. I mean, and it happened very quickly, I think. It's happening right now very quickly. And I always thought that was a style that, to not the same degree at all as people say with hazies, but people say and have said, even when it was exploding, like, hazy is not a trend. It's not going to be this huge thing forever, but it's always going to be around. I kind of wish black IPA was like that, and it didn't just disappear, that there had been a couple examples of it. And it was such a shame to me that the best examples just went away. And to me, that was Firestone Walker, Wookie Jack, and Stone's Sublimely Self-Righteous. To me, those were the two kind of iconic examples. There's some others too, but those are the two. And what do you know? Both of those right now are being rebrewed and redistributed.
Every time I log into Twitter now, 20 notifications, and it's just me being tagged 20 times in Wookie Jack and Stone subliminally self-righteous posts.
Yeah.
So
it's I gotta do it again. I mean, before this show even existed, I used to do a video review, and I did I think I did a blind black IPA tasting, and I predicted that Sublimely would be my favorite, and it was. I think the Wookie Jack wasn't super fresh too, so I gotta give them now two tastes.
So what I think there's a very straightforward recipe for success with the black IPA, and that is, make these go away soon and then bring them back in the fall. Make this a seasonal IPA. For any brewery has some, everybody's got some kind of system of rotation for their kind of one-offs. Just make this a one-off, brew it once or twice, or brew it a couple times if you want.
Yeah.
But like, don't make this thing lurk all summer, because this isn't what people want to drink in the summer.
Right.
I've seen like more than ever drinking with the seasons, especially come fall and winter. I feel like the beers that were fitting for October weather and beers fitting for Christmas this year have just been flying. They were for us at Revolution, and for all the data I look at, it was off the charts. So yeah, let's make black IPA an IPA for the fall and or winter, and that's it.
I'm down with that. That would be great. I'd love to see that.
I'm really happy to hear that, because now if I could say that I spoke on a show to Doug Veliky, the prophet of data, who says that, and Chris, who confirmed it, that the black IPA is worth doing. Because one of my favorite beers, of course, was our Lumpen IPA. And we would sell it, but it didn't really sell really well. And it was a weird label. But now I have an excuse to say, if there's any room on the schedule, can we bring that back? So thank you, guys. Thank you, Doug. I hope that they listen to the show. I'm going to forward them the link to the exact minute, and then they'll listen to me. Because a lot of people at Mars don't listen to me, which is a good thing, really, because if they did, the entire company would collapse. But yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you brought that up about bringing back these styles, because we find ourselves this year brewing a lot of West Coast IPAs and wit beers, for Christ's sakes, right? Like, who gives a shit about those beers? But we've been doing it. I mean, we have 4 different West Coast IPAs that we brew. We're making Dunkelweisses that we never made. We were making all these kind of traditional beers that we normally never did, but we're just like, fuck it. Let's just go for it. Let's just see what Mikey Manning can do, who's like our head brewer. And it's been really great. It's been fascinating to see what this kid's doing. And I really loved these traditional styles more so than I ever have, actually. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I've had a lot of end of year meetings with our suppliers as well. And there has been that consistent overtone of West Coast IPAs and more traditional styles. And curious to get what your guys' thoughts are on it. It's not something that I'm hearing from consumers that we need to put out there. It's more so like what I'm thinking that we should have. And the suppliers are kind of coming in that same direction. And I'm looking at their yearly calendars, and I'm seeing West Coast IPAs and wits, and Belgian browns, and just kind of more of a throwback. But we don't have any like data, at least that I know of, that's like suggesting that we need to go that way. I think for whatever reason, we're kind of maybe pre-programmed to like, what do we know best? I mean, where did we start in this? When all else fails, like what's the go-to type of stuff, So I don't know if anyone can speak to that anymore, but I'm seeing the same thing, but without it being consumer driven. It's more top down versus from the bottom up.
Well, we've always kind of been that kind of what do we want to brew type of brewery anyway. So I have no data, and we're so small, we can't help you out in that regard, Brian. But I think what's happening is that there are also people who are just still getting into craft beer and don't even know about an ESB, don't even know about these styles, and don't have access to them unless they're going to like a beer temple or a good specialty shop, So.
Do you think this is something that's COVID driven, or maybe it was just something that was going to happen regardless, and it just maybe fast forwarded it?
Yeah, COVID made it instant.
Yeah, I think COVID
made it happen in a flash instead of it being a long grind to maybe getting there over years and years.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all kind of thought that, there's going to be kind of a recession in a sense of like going back to what kind of started it all for everyone. But I mean, just to see that kind of flash in the pan, boom, here we go, without any real data supporting that drive. I'm just curious.
So I don't know what data could really be out there on customers. So like I can only go by anecdotal. I mean, of course there's IRI, but that's not going to tell us what we're talking about. I often use my Instagram feed, which has a good following, to just measure reactions to things. And I know that if I post, the latest Hot Butcher IPA, I know I'll get 5 or 6 people wondering, what I thought about it, who have something to say. But if I go on there and post, and I've never done this, but if I bet you it'd be funny to test this. If I've got like a Bell's Brown Ale and I posted that and I said, what's a really good style nobody's talking about is a brown ale. And you know who makes a really good one? Bell's. I bet you that would get like 50 comments of people like saying, I remember when I just bought that this week, and really getting rise. And I wouldn't have said that a year ago. It would have been the complete opposite. And I feel like there's this, I've seen in just like the things I do and see on social media, just this very noticeable increase in reaction from people wanting to talk about things that are more nostalgia driven. But again, I can't run a report and give you like a, you know, meaningful survey on this. This is all just kind of like little small things I do, sometimes on purpose, sometimes just naturally. I'm
I
curious.
also obviously don't have any data. It goes against my core to have any foundation to my opinions. So what but I think I think it's maybe not a bad idea if it is coming top down, Brian. I think the industry needs a little bit more of that. I don't think it should be entirely top down, but I don't think it should always be responding to the Instagram feed of your competitors. And it feels like it has been that a little bit too much. I think there needs to be a little bit of that, but I think it's good for people to brew what they want and then share that passion for what they brewed, or what they just drank. In the case of you, Doug, and kind of what we do at the shop. That's great too. And that's a new way to discover. You don't need to discover because it's literally the first time this beer's ever been made. There's other ways to do it too. So that's cool. Let's move on. Who wants to go? Anyone want to go next, or should I jump in there? Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Go for it.
I mean, obviously everyone knows about COVID. We probably should have like a larger breakdown on what, I don't know, I guess how it affected necessarily like our industry in a sense, but like my breakout on it was essentially like chaos breeds opportunity. I had never come across anything like COVID. I don't think any of us has, you know, I mean, especially like in my 7 years of running a distributor, we've certainly had our, you know, ups and downs, you know, hurdles that we've had to face, things where I'm just like, oh crap, like, what are we going to do? And, you know, learning to get through that stuff, you know, it just makes you stronger. And then COVID, you know, I wasn't fully prepared for it, but, you know, as nervous as I was to navigate the waters, I was like, all right, you know, we've been through tough times, you know, let's take a deep breath. And it's really like looking at the current situation, like, well, where can we sell beer? You know, who is buying beer? What are they buying? How do we fit what we can do to like the current market situation? And I think that was something that people probably found for the first time. Just that real barrier, like, oh my God, like I can't open up and do what I've been doing, you know. I don't know where I was going overall with that, but I guess it was just more of a optimistic type of thing of like, look, you know, like I know it sucks, but you got to really just take weight of what, you know, why you got into it, what you can do. You know, maybe you're not going to 100% do what you started out to do, but what can you do? You know, I was telling Doug and Ed, you know, I knew I did not want to fire or get rid of or furlough any employees. So I kept everyone on, even though we didn't have beer sales to support, you know, the trucks and the drivers. But, you know, luckily with EPP, you know, we had a little bit of cash infusion. And even though we weren't making deliveries, we were helping like the Northern Illinois Food Bank, you know, picking up food from Target and Walmart and delivering it to pantries, just doing something to keep stuff moving. And I think that really helped keep everyone's, you know, spirits somewhat up, you know, and it kept everyone kind of employed and going. And we were able to kind of redeploy our forces to where, you know, we could sell and where people were able to go to. And so I think that's an important thing for, you know, all three tiers in a sense to consider, that you may just have to kind of reinvent the wheel for a little while, and don't be afraid to do that. You know, you may find, and I'm sure some businesses have found areas where they didn't realize that they could, you know, capitalize on, and now they are. And I'm without a doubt 100% certain that a lot of businesses are going to be operating differently moving forward, probably having a few different revenue streams in a sense. So that was one topic that I had.
That
businesses
aligns
that
very closely to what I'll be talking about as well. So I'll touch on that a little bit more, Brian. But
and I was thinking businesses that are kind of in that one lane where they really have kind of a niche market where you got to come here, get it fresh type of thing are the ones that are definitely hit the hardest. I mean, you can't have, 4-star, 5-star Michelin chef putting stuff in styrofoam and selling it at curbside. It doesn't make sense.
yeah,
And then I've really been impressed. My final thing, and I'll give it up. I was impressed like the creative growth that I saw throughout the industry. Just people really kind of reinventing the wheel and taking the ball and running with it. Getting more localized to the neighborhood. Realizing what their demographics are. What are they looking for right now? They've got some spare time. Maybe we can give them meals that are pre-prepped that they can take home and cook. I've
what
seen
kind
a
of
lot of
meals? Just like meat and potatoes type stuff.
yeah, bread and butter. You got it, buddy. I'm good for a few of them. Yeah, the cocktails to go thing too. We've got to give a little slap on the back for the liquor commission.
Yeah.
They were a little late to the punch on kind of opening up things, but they still got to navigate it all too. And just seeing the home deliveries from the supplier side. The meals to go. I mean, Ed, you and your businesses have been kind of at the forefront of the community front end for a while now. But there's a lot of businesses that don't even know about that or operate that way. And I've seen a lot of that out in the burbs. Obviously the burbs in Chicago are a little bit different entities, but it's been really cool to see, the businesses that kind of have really just kind of gone back to the drawing board and took that advice of, okay, well, what can we do? Let's do something. We can't just do nothing. So yeah, that's my soapbox.
No, that's great. That segues really well into what I was going to talk about, because I think mine is pretty much exactly the same, but more focused into the retail aspects for me. Definitely the story of the year for me as it relates to beer, because there's a whole bunch of stories that are bigger than beer that have happened in 2020. But that's one of the nice things about coming on this show, and you can just focus on beer and pretend like it's the most important thing in the world. But yeah, COVID and craft beer retail, specifically craft beer and specifically retail, it has just completely turned things on its head. And it's been, fascinating and scary to watch, but it has, I think, as you mentioned earlier, Doug, it has made change instantaneous. Stuff that was on like a curve to happen just was now became a light switch, and it has happened. And it is also just made. So I guess, okay. So what I'm talking about there is the trend that it became instantaneous was beer delivery, alcohol delivery, the last mile delivery, or whatever they want to call it. I'm not talking about the delivery from Europe to the United States, or from California to Chicago, or from the distributor to the store. I'm talking about from the store, or that last bit to the consumer's hand. Stuff like Drizzly, but places like that have just are rocketing in popularity. Alcohol delivery, just absolutely huge in this year, and I don't think that that's going anywhere. It's just going to continue this acceleration as people become more familiar with it. I'll say it now. I've said it once before on this show. Be ready. Geez, this really plays into the big guys' hands and crafties' hands, I think, personally, in a lot of ways. I think You know, you can pay for sponsorships, you can pay for placement, you can pay for search result, placement, you can pay for all that stuff if you have the coin. And if, you know, when an algorithm changes, certain videos become more popular on YouTube or on Facebook. That isn't to say that that content isn't what people necessarily want, but if that algorithm was just a little different, a different video would have those same views. I think in many cases, not all cases, and I think that's going to be something you're going to start seeing in consumables as well, including beer. I think the access to those algorithms, access to those search results and stuff like that, and placement is, I think it's something that is going to be pushed by the big guys, because what I've been saying since this show first started was that the big guys don't like all these SKUs. They want to consolidate it down. They want to push. I used to say they wanted to push stuff to big box, because then they can control the set and that they can deal with. And then they can give illusion of choice. They can do all this other stuff. But walking into a shop with 1,000 SKUs is too hard to compete in. It's much easier to compete with the search result, and where you fall in line there. And then from there, you can say, well, hey, this is the #1 IPA. So that's why we're pushing it. It's like, well, yeah, it's the #1 because you bought it to become the #1. But anyway, so that's my one little word of warning about it. But there's also people like Mike Shalal, a good friend of the show, who's doing his own delivery, and many others as well. So that's not to say that Drizzly is the only one doing that thing. A way that the script has been completely flipped on the retail side. So I guess chapter 2 of my story is what was seen as the safest route to market for a new brewery: the own premise model, where you're based around a tap room. That is your foundation that you grow from, has now been completely flipped. And breweries who were doing the right thing, the safe thing going into 2020, are now struggling. And if they did not have a distribution model really to speak of, they are not in a very good position. And that's not to say that they've gone out of business, but let's see what happens. We're not out of the woods by any means yet. So that's another way that this tap room release, you go to the tap room, you line up, you get all the stuff. That was the surefire thing. It was the most lucrative from a profitability per unit standpoint. It brought people there. They could then drink at your tap room. They could take to go. They could get your food there. All of that has just been thrown into disarray. And then the chapter 3 of how this has affected retail is the fact that so we all talk about own premise is kind of a bastardization of the two types of retail, which is on premise and off premise. And in places like Chicago, not everywhere, on premise literally for a little bit completely stopped, and then since then has all but stopped. There is outdoor and stuff like that, but bars are essentially closed. And newsflash to a lot of breweries, a lot of big breweries, they sell a lot of draft beer, and bars sell a lot of draft beer, and distributors sell a lot of draft beer, and that has just completely been upended in ways that are not. It does not make sense to plan for. It doesn't make sense to plan for every bar in the city of Chicago closing. So what do we do? Let's game plan it. A brewery. We make 50,000 barrels of beer a year. What if we didn't sell any kegs one day? So
That's why
what?
that's why we have a can shortage. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're describing why there's a can shortage.
yeah, yeah. Because that's, I mean,
Because why
well,
would
that's
you be ready for that? Why would you be ready for all the liquid going into cans instead of the normal keg versus
Well,
can split?
sidebar on the can shortage. I heard that it wasn't actually like a material, like raw material shortage. It was because of the seltzers and the skinny cans, the increase in demand on that. They have to shut the line down, reconfigure it, and then spend 3 days on just cranking out those slims, which is something that they didn't envision taking off. And so I think I've heard that that's been a big piece of the shortage. And then the other piece was with COVID, a lot of the smaller guys that helped move some of that stuff around just went under and didn't have enough to sustain not having product. Even with the demand, if you can't get it, you can't sell it. And so I mean, I don't know if there's any real truth to it, but it makes sense if you think about the uptick in those styles of cans that aren't going to craft suppliers for the most part, kind of tying things up. Because I mean, it's crazy to think about it being a raw material shortage, something that's been around for that long. But sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there.
It's not an aluminum shortage. It's a plant capacity to crank out the demand for cans, like turning the aluminum into actually printing them and running them. It's
like a bottleneck, is what you're saying?
Yeah. There's not enough time and not enough machines. All the I mean, there's two especially major players. They all have plants being built right now to address this and have these in planning already. But just the surge of how quickly it happened, there's just not enough. There's not enough time in the day to crank out all the orders for the cans, whether they're slim cans or 12 ounce, normal 16 ounce. There's just not enough plant capacity right now.
And
but
I heard
there
that.
Will be. Yeah.
I get that, but then we also, when we look at like the percentage of craft beer to overall beer sales, how can we have that big of an impact when we only have such a small percentage of the overall market?
That's a fair question.
So I don't think I think the big guys are getting hurt by the can shortage more than in volume wise, much more than craft. I think that's where the biggest out of stocks are happening, where distributors are losing money because their largest suppliers can't get enough cans. What, Brian, I think you might be talking about maybe is the breweries that are so small that they can't buy direct from the can manufacturer. They buy from a middleman who buys blank cans, and then they buy those because then they can buy the amount that they even have to store in their warehouse. A lot of these places don't have like a true warehouse. They just have room for a couple pallets at a time. So the companies buying from a third party small quantities of cans can't get them because those third parties can't get them because they're low on the list versus these suppliers who commit to these giant volumes. So I think there's huge pinches happening at the highest levels. The biggest breweries in the country are not able to get the amount of cans they want, and then there's absolutely the pinch at the bottom too, and everywhere in between.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hop Slam came out this year, bottles only, and the reason being is they wanted to save their cans for other year-round products of theirs. At least that's what the rep told us. So yeah, interesting stuff. Who wants to go next with the story of or is it just you then, Ed? Right.
This actually is a nice segue for one of my points, and I forgot that you guys had talked about the CARES Act and the value of PPP and IDL loans in the past episodes. But the one big story for me, I guess, is really, these friendships that we made here, like a very personal story. Friendships made here on your show, Chris, with Doug and other people, is what led to that kind of mythical community we thought craft beer had, right? craft brewing, we were different. We were a community. Everyone helped each other with whatever it was. If you look at the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild email thread, everyone's always helping people with supplies or hops or whatever. And I think what happened this year, despite the fact that we're living in a failed state, the fact that factories were shut down and supply chains were shut down, we couldn't get deliveries from China for whatever the hell we needed in terms of our what gear to use to produce beer. I mean, despite it all, everyone helped each other. And I think the big story of the year is that we could turn to our big brothers like Revolution and say, hey, do you have any extra whatever shit laying around that we could purchase to keep our brewery alive? If it wasn't for people like Revolution, Mars wouldn't have any fucking cans to sell right now. We wouldn't be able to produce the beers that we sell. There wasn't for all the different breweries trading hops or selling their used hops for their old inventories they didn't use because all their forecasts were crazy because of COVID. No one would be making this beer. So I love hearing this story. And Brian, everyone's been freaking out about supplies all year. Logan is losing his mind constantly, right? Trying to find cans so we could put our beer in cans. And everybody needs cans because, Chris, you're right. The on-premise model was defeated. The whole concept of going to the brewery, well, not really though, because those breweries also released their beers in cans, Chris. You came and picked up the cans they sold on premise, right? If it wasn't for us having a tap room, we would not have connected with our community. Our community of people who went to Mars and buys beers, what kept Mars alive. They kept people employed. When we first shut down everything, we lost all the employees in our kitchen and our tap room. People were tipping, buying beer. We were distributing tips for 5 months to every employee, even if they didn't even work for us anymore. People were just getting checked from our customers. So the reality of this pandemic is that Mars Community Brewing Co., right? Oh yeah, whatever, Mars Community Brewing, yeah. There's a real community of people who care about local businesses, understand the value of craft brewing as a manufacturing center, as a place that creates something for their community, a third place, a place of employment, a place for people to have a great time. And I think my story, or our story for Mars, is that the greater community in the industry itself and in our customers, our guests, they kept our brewery alive. And of course we have, to pivot millions of times. How do we do our sales? What are we serving out of our kitchen? But the other story for us is that, we always were philanthropic. We're always helping different community groups and organizations do stuff, but we just took off and went nuts with our community kitchen program, with expanding it. And I don't know. If there's anything that this pandemic shows is that we really have to do everything we can for our communities in whatever way we possibly can. And I think almost everyone here has stepped up and done everything they could, or if there are opportunities for them to do something, they stepped up and did it. And that to me is what is the beauty. If you look at the Black is Beautiful beer as one example of thousands of examples of breweries participating in trying to provide funds or resources to highlight social justice issues, or just merely to feed people or support projects. That's the incredible story to me, is that we live in a failed state. Unfortunately, a president matters. The way you talk about science and what the truth is matters, right? And because we were handicapped by our failed state, we managed to work together and keep things going despite it all. And in fact,
sorry,
if it wasn't for that, we would all be in deep doo-doo right now. All of our businesses would be in deep doo-doo.
Thank you for refraining from cursing that time.
Yeah.
That helped. Yeah.
The reality is without our guests or customers or people who actually care about what it means, what your choice means, it'd be over. However, Chris, I would argue with you on your point that on-premise is done. No,
I didn't say done. I said the story of the year was how it was it was something that was a strength became a liability. I'm not saying it is
No, but it's a liability for anyone who had a bar or a
Yeah.
place to purchase on premise. The pandemic destroyed a quarter of all restaurants and places that served alcohol. It's a leveler. And then,
Yeah.
Brian, right, opportunity exists. Yeah, I would argue you're right. In this chaos, we got our stuff together. We pivoted every other week, right? We were building our tap room and mini nano brewery on the north side. We stopped because we're freaking out and worried, but we said, you know what? We're going to get through this and we're going to open the damn thing. So we invested in a new place. We're investing in a new, a block away from where I used to live 20, 30 years ago. I think a lot of breweries are also expanding in ways they never thought they would expand before, based on these opportunities. I guess the last thing I'd want to say on my list, besides the boring stuff and the obvious stuff about COVID and the pandemic, is that diversification also saved Mars. When we lost all of our draft accounts, we lost all the on-premise drinking. You know what took off for us? Obviously, you could guess it, Chris or Doug. What took off?
CBD.
Yeah, CBD. The fact that we make 12 or 14 other beverages besides beer. That's what allowed us to actually regain and capture that revenue that we lost by selling draft beer to accounts. And
Amazing.
And it is amazing, and it's crazy that all my staff, all my colleagues think I'm nuts for doing this stuff. They think I'm a complete idiot for getting involved in CBD or coffee or whatever. And I'm like, we have a brewing system. Let's brew whatever the hell it is. So my advice, and what I would argue was a story for our year, is that our diversification, the fact that we did other things besides beer, like our kombucha, the CBD seltzers, coffee with CBD, is what allowed us to keep going as well. In tandem with the help that we got from our friends and brothers and sisters over at Revolution, in tandem with the retailers who kept buying our beer despite whatever our price point is. You know what I mean? So, and then our customers, the people who actually give a crap about what we do. Because when you buy our beer, you also are investing in a company that actually feeds 1,000 people a week with a network with our sister Public Media Institute, the place that runs this radio station. Our organization feeds 4,000 people a week with hot meals because our guests, our people give a crap. They care. And that to me is like the beauty of it all. The political polarization, the horrors of like this kind of orange shirt, neo-fascist, white supremacist bullshit that's happening is negated by the fact that people care about each other. People will help each other no matter what. So there's my fucking rant that I probably would have screamed about and swore a lot more last week had we have done the show.
Yes.
One thing I want to quickly add that, Ed brought it up, Ed went on about it, Brian brought it up in his first point about people stepping up. And I don't know if this is it sounds like a quote I've heard, but just that like uncertainty breeds leadership or something like that. But like the number of people I've seen or just gotten to know from the last 9 months who've stepped up and run some kind of amazing fundraising or initiative over the last 9 months in the wake of everything going on and basically doing more than they ever would have because of the multitude of issues we've faced has been incredible. I mean, one example of someone I got to know a little bit through this, Virginia Thomas is her name. She works at Beer Miscuous. She started selling stickers that say, I think it says, "I don't drink beer with racists," and donated 100% of the proceeds to a new organization called Beer Culture that's helping create opportunities in the craft beer industry for people of color. And she's raised thousands of dollars selling these stickers. And the number of examples of projects like that I've seen people start up grassroots and use social media to get the word out there has been incredible. And that's one. I've seen so many of these, and it is awesome. And I hope this lives on, but it's been.
Think of the Love Fridge, right? If you know, do you know about the Love Fridge?
Yes.
Like a food pantry and refrigerator just located outside of a store. We have one in our alley at Mars. There's 25 of them. They have a network of hundreds of people helping deliver food and getting donations from all over, food and stuff. It's all grassroots, and it's unrelated to the government or unrelated to the nonprofit industrial complex of food insecurity, which exists, which I discovered as we were doing our thing. But you're right. That's exactly right. You know, there are a lot of people who have been able to be motivated and activated by this crisis, much like how everything changed on a dime in terms of like how we're consuming beverages. Everything changed on a dime in terms of everyone's lives and how they relate to this world and in designing a world they want to see. And that is the most beautiful thing. It is a silver lining, as you say, Chris. And that is what keeps me going. It keeps me like happy that we could actually discuss these things, that we're still here. We're still trying to figure out what the hell to do. But yeah, that's basically my observations were just like the fact that the community that exists in craft beer that I thought was falling apart, that I thought there were too many people I didn't even know, there were too many organizations and groups. There were too many people who just thought of it as like a business investment thing that was like some surefire way to make some bucks as opposed to investing in stocks or Bitcoin. That community exists, and the industry is still run by people who are humans and actually give a crap about each other. And it reinforced that, and I love that about our industry. I'm so proud to be involved in this industry because the people in this industry give a shit.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you, Ed. I think those were all awesome stories of the year and very fitting. Let's take just a couple minutes, 5 minutes or so break, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about our some of the predictions from last year's end of year show, and then and how they fared, and then finally the predictions for this current year. So we'll come back in like 5 minutes.
We have to predict what's going to happen in 2021.
So we are back with the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. I'm with my guests, Brian Kerby, Doug Veliky, and Ed Marzuski for our 2020 year in review show. So we've been doing this show for several years now. And the good thing is, you know, we have, I overwrite our show outline week over week over week. But this time, this show in particular, I save every year. I save all the predictions and I save everything. So I have them going back, I think, since the beginning of the show. So I can just go and pull them up. So I have right now, I have the outline from last year's end of year show. I have the 2018 end of year show, and I can pull up the 2017 one as well. But I can see what our predictions, which we will have our predictions at the end of the show for 2021, our predictions, what they'll be is how we'll end. But I want to see how our predictions for last year went, how they held up. I will say, I think my 2017 prediction finally came true, which was, I'll go back to my 2018 prediction from 2017, end of the year 2017.
Come on, go.
Very quickly.
I don't see it on the outline, so you're pulling some new. You're just
no. Then I'm going to read mine. I'm just going to. It'll only take a moment. I said more breweries are going to focus on core products and seasonal annuals, rather than focusing on obtaining and retaining drinkers and getting them loyal to their brands. The days of new will begin to see an early beginning to a lull, I said in 2018. So I was completely wrong. And then I kind of tried to double down last year and I was wrong again. And then, so last year, my prediction was retaining hype will become harder and harder. Those breweries that rely on it primarily / exclusively will begin contortions to remain hyped. And I said drops at other brewery, more extreme examples of manufactured rarity, et cetera, will start to edge in on each other's, quote, share of hype as fourth generation beer hobbyists continue to mature and realize that this is a never ending game where the beers are not actually getting better, but just different. The squeeze will only increase since less young people seem interested in the rat race. That was my prediction for 2020.
I've never heard share of hype before. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, share of hype.
Well,
So
Chris,
yes.
I think in a way this maybe because of this, the turn of COVID is true.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, I think it'll come back in a vengeance as soon. I think it's going to be full on circus clowns and, when the things open back up, I think people are going to try to do anything they possibly can. So it's really going to be will the consumer bite on that when it opens back up.
5 different wigs when we open.
Exactly. You'll just be switching them all the time. Like, hey, look at me. It's Crazy Eddie. Come down here where the beers are insane. Yeah. So
I feel like for those clown shows too, which I think are coming, you're gonna have to kind of navigate. Okay, is this them doing them, or is this, reaching out and grasping at, whatever last bit of cash they can grab before maybe the inevitable happens. So that's also something to consider.
Well,
that's true.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I also think that is this them being them? The answer is always yes, because they're the ones doing it.
There's a rim.
I mean, it is them.
There was a rim shot visual you missed.
I saw it.
But
Yeah, it is.
I want Brian to talk about his prediction.
Yeah, man. So Brian, you said we reach PKs, but it'll be a long.
That was Brian.
That was Brian. Oh, never mind. Oh no, you were all right. Well done to Brian Roth. Brian Roth killed it. Long plateau instead of declining for Hayes, he said. But yours, Brian,
was probably the only one that actually held true for 2020. But
yeah, health and wellness.
Yeah. Why don't you do this, Brian? Brian, it says a further increase in the 2019 prediction of health wellness products, NAs, CBD, booch, etc. Will it tap into beer share or pull from a new untapped consumer base? Now, I would argue, from our experience, our consumer base purchased more of these beverages.
At the cost of your others, that it cannibalize, I think is what Brian was maybe asking.
Replace the missing on-premise drinking.
Well, mine was a two-parter. Was that there was going to be an increase, and then the caveat was would it pull from existing sales.
So how do you feel about that? Yeah,
I definitely saw an increase. I said N43 was our number one for last year. Our top selling IPA was a non-alcoholic IPA from Wellbeing Brewing. I think it was our 5th best selling beer overall and our top IPA. And there was like 3 IPAs right behind it that were alcohol. And it wasn't just in terms of volume, but also like in sales dollars. So looking at it from both ways. And I've known, we got into the NA game a few years ago, kombucha game 6 years ago, CBD probably 2 years ago. And these were all things that I knew like had potential. And we were like launching with like the top brand in the States or whatever, but they were definitely quality.
You weren't launching with the top brand because the top brand in the state obviously is the Mars CBD line, Brian.
Right. We've had those conversations. We can rehash that later.
Sorry about that. I had to deal
with it. Right. So all of those, the NAs, the CBDs, and the booches were up by far. It did not, from what we've seen, cannibalize our alcohol business. When I started the distribution company, I was looking at 50% of the population, and those were people that were drinking alcohol. And of that population, you have X amount drinking spirits, X amount drinking wine, X amount drinking beer. Of that beer populace, there's even a smaller percentage that drinks craft, right? So I'm like, I keep narrowing what we do down further and further and further. But what I failed to kind of look at when I was being the entrepreneur and trying to bring something to people that want something was I was ignoring the 50% of the population that doesn't drink alcohol at all. And there's a ton of people out there for whatever reason. Maybe they used to drink alcohol and now they don't anymore because they can't control it. Or they just want to limit their alcohol intake, or it's medical reasons, or it's just an easier thing for them to get into. So those people are coming out in droves. They've been looking for stuff. All they've been able to drink was, I mean, to think that Red Bridge was like the number one thing coming from the AB monster for years is insane. Like, it's tough to drink 2 of those things, let alone 1. And I took last January off for personal reasons and just to really kind of understand what dry January meant, to cleanse my palate from alcohol, to see, because the NAs and most beverages in general change once your body kind of rids itself of that need for alcohol. When you start looking at an NA for itself and not that it's supposed to be a replacement for an NA, it changed.
Which I think is vital for it to be that. I don't think it should try to be something it isn't. It should be its own thing. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think now, what I've seen the last 3 years though is we've got some NAs, they're test cans that we're getting that are rivaling, some of the top stuff that we have now. I'm just like, now I'm thinking, okay, so maybe are you drinking that, that New England IPA for the alcohol, or are you drinking it for the taste? Because if I can get you the taste and the mouthfeel and all that without the alcohol, maybe we subsidize it with CBD or THC or something like that, so you get a little something on the back end. Is that going to be something that's going to be a major player, or is it just like, hey, here's a really good NA now? And for me to round out that topic, the NA quality is catching up now to the alcohol versions, and I don't see any way that they're going to go away when you can get that package, that flavor, what you're looking for in a version. I find myself, I know, like those nights when I know I really want to get after it, I'll pound a few NAs just to kind of fill the stomach up and kind of curve the beast a little bit before I start hitting heavy stuff. And so, for me as an avid drinker, if I can find room in my arsenal, not just because I sell them and want to support them, but because I can find, a place
how
for
they
them
work how to work it in. Right. That's great.
Hey, Chris,
That's cool.
I agree with you completely, Brian. As you know, we experiment with all these different types of beverages, and this year we're launching a really awesome line of NA spirit-free beverages that taste like a cocktail. And along with that, I also have a ability to just package distilled products and make my own cocktail line. So I'm playing all those different niche opportunities to see where it takes us. But yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. That really reinforces my belief that flavorful, awesome NA style beverages that are spirit free or whatever that taste like beverages that you want to drink that are high quality matters. Our whole ethos is we don't really care what anything costs to make, even though earlier today in the pre-show, I was talking to Doug and how I really wish I knew how to make a beverage affordably as opposed to these exorbitant prices I pay. We still have that philosophy when we launch a product or incubate it, right? We have a period of seeing what happens in the marketplace, that it doesn't matter what doesn't matter what a product costs to make as long as it tastes great. So the secret is making it taste great in a way that a consumer can afford it on a regular basis. So
those for the Patreon subscribers,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a great idea. Experimental beverage Patreon. And it'd be great to use all my friends growing those 5 marijuana plants to have that THC go out there into small batches into the mouths of Chris, Doug, and Brian.
Mm-hmm. Chase. You don't have to tell Brian twice to chase the green dragon. Everyone knows that. All right, that's the only time I'll mention. That's the second time and only I'll mention it.
Hey, Chris, real quick, do you
Yeah.
have if you have like, I think it was maybe 2018, do you have a Chris Furnari prediction?
Yeah.
Was it 2018? Could you read that?
Would you read one?
Sure. So it was in 2018 it had been his back-to-back show. So he predicted in 2018 that health and wellness, big expectation for 2019 is the healthier, better for you products will start to grab more and more mind share. Things like hard seltzer, which has already come on very strong, alcoholic kombucha, non-alc beer, low-calorie beer with functional quote-unquote ingredients. And of course, you can't talk about these trends without mentioning the role that cannabis is playing in all of this. It is used as a substitute for alcohol in some circumstances, and a product that has fewer negative repercussions on overall health. As more states legalize, as CBD beverages mainstream, as cannabis edibles and drinkables become more popular, I think you will see a lot of consumers look to moderate their alcohol consumption overall, and this will lead to the growth of some of the products I mentioned. That was in late 2018 he mentioned that.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up is I just did like a video interview with him, and I asked him for a 2020 prediction, and that was almost word for word what he gave me. And I was like, this sounds familiar. Yeah. And I was like, because I listened to your podcast, and he's not wrong. I'm making the point that that prediction was valid then. It was valid when last year in 2019. If we had a fresh crew, none of us that were on the show recently, someone could have made that right now, and we would have, people would be nodding like that. This is like a slow build that's been happening for a while now, and it's going to keep happening, and it'll be a valid prediction for next year as well. And I think this is just going to keep going on and on. I totally agree with it.
I want to argue this though, that the THC segment, there are too many barriers for anyone to enter, and that the entire industry in Illinois was set up to be a vertical integration where they own the manufacturing, distribution, growing of these products, and the outlets to sell them in. No one will ever grow a THC beverage company in Illinois that won't be controlled by the conglomerates. So the whole industry, the weed industry, is set up as a monopoly play. That's my prediction.
All right. That's weed takes by EdMar.
No, but and anyone in the weed business knows I'm completely telling the truth here. It is set up, the way they set the laws up, the legislation was set up to be about social justice. It's all a lie. There are people who got their licenses just as like a thing to hold on to resell later. So that you will not make a weed beverage in Illinois. Anyone listening, you will never get distribution, ever.
Interesting.
I wholeheartedly concur with you, Ed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking into it years ago. I thought, a craft beverage distribution company would probably be in the best spot.
Yeah, you're the green dragon. Of course, you thought of this.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's not going to be any legislation that's going to be for us to do that type of thing. I know we could do it well. I know our sales reps are very versed in, being able to sell that type of products. We already collect taxes. We pay taxes.
Yep.
We're the middleman. We're the ones that are, watching the supplier or watching the accounts because we have to report on all of it. So, the larger distributors don't want a piece of it. They don't want to lose any sales or share the beer. So that's not going anywhere. They're not going to lobby for it. It's going to be something that's 100%, like you said, government controlled and very regulated.
Oh no, government controlled, but corporate. There's very few corporations that will dominate the entire vertical business of marijuana.
Oh yeah, first of all, just being first to market on anything is going to help you out, and then let alone the $1 billion that came in or almost into Illinois is only going to prop that up even more. So how are you possibly?
Price entry is too high.
We have conversations with a few people that are in CBD that know THC very well. And we have conversations and it's just like, how do we get this out to accounts. How do we get this out to people? And
Never.
there's just nothing that's going to allow it right now.
We got to keep going, guys. We are running long as it is. I wanted to get through some of the. Can I say your prediction, Doug?
You do Doug's.
Mine's quick.
Yeah. So Doug said you had a whole blog post of predictions from last year, but you said that you predicted that Bourbon County, the regular version, and Pliny the Elder will move to cans in 2020. So how'd you do on that one, Doug?
Definitely was wrong on Bourbon County. As we know, that didn't happen. Pliny the Elder, so they did not have a canning line when I said that, or at least not that they showed off or were running cans on. So it was, at the time I made it a little out of nowhere, they got a canning line.
You didn't know behind the scenes that they were getting one or anything? Okay.
No.
Just I'm setting you up to look even better, man. That's all.
So they did start canning early on, and I was like, okay, you could sell a $20 4-pack of Pliny the Elder and move those so much better than you'd move the bottles, where people might buy one or two. Now they're spending $20 to buy 4. And it didn't happen until, like, I think it was summer when the election talks started really getting hot, and then they made a beer called Pliny for President. So it was not technically Pliny the Elder. It was like a double dry hop version. So I thought about the prediction, of course. I was like, does that count? It's Pliny, but it's not Pliny the Elder. But in late December, they ran Pliny the Elder in cans at the very, with a few days to spare. So I made the Pliny the Elder one just in time.
So absolute dead on prediction. Well done. You suck. You're too good at this damn game. So well done with your
I was very confident
your black IPAs and your
I was very confident about the Bourbon County and was very wrong on that. So.
I wish he was right about Jungle Boogie being the national beer of the century. Someday.
You just make sure I don't predict it. Make sure I don't predict it for next year, because it'll take 20 years for it to even start to move a little bit.
Also, Chris, I like the denigration of that beer, but off mic, Chris did say his number 2 beer of the year was Jungle Boogie. Oh, he's nodding. He's nodding. He's not.
No, I was on a virtual tasting today, and I said I think what I've moved Jungle Boogie into one of our core lineup for our virtual tastings that we're doing. We've switched up a little bit. We're trying to really keep it local, or we've brought Perennial in because I feel like they're like an adoptive local brewery for the way I feel about them out of St. Louis. But we had a Midwest Coast, we had Rev in there, we had Jungle Boogie in there, and I said, this one is a little bit more of a premium product, but I just love it so much that I want to share it, and it's probably my favorite beer coming out of Chicago, and it's definitely one of my favorite beers in the entire country. So I said that today.
Wow.
What I did before admit to was I said I was a number 1 fanboy of Jungle Boogie, and I even called out Veliky, and I should have known not to do that because I just don't have the stick-to-itiveness that Doug does. And I'll bend the knee. I bend the knee formally. Here, I'll do it. I'll do it literally too. Okay. Yeah. I'm bending. This is me bending the knee in my quarantine to the king of Boogie of Boogie promotion, because I mean we know who the real king of Boogie is, but to you, Doug. So kudos to you. But yeah, not my beer of the year though. But it was my beer of the year years ago. Like when it first came out, it was my beer of the year.
Back in '63, you were.
Yeah, back in '63. Yeah. I remember I looked at it. Whatever year it came out, it was like months old. It was in 500 mils, and we were talking about how whatever. We're not talking about Jungle Boogie. All right, let's move on. Nate was also on Nate Nelson last year, and he said one or more BA top 50 breweries, that's Brewers Advocate ranked top 50 breweries, will adopt or reintroduce a membership/subscription model for barrel-aged products. Lagging sales of BCBS and founders KBS/CBS point towards barrel-aged beer returning to its status as a niche product. 2018 saw the Lost Abbey reintroduce its Patron Sinners program, and in 2019, Deschutes introduced a new annual subscription model for its barrel-aged specialty offerings. In 2020, we'll see more of this as breweries adapt to maintain their prestige brands. Has that happened in 2020? I haven't seen it. I haven't noticed it, but I'm not really on the pulse of that sort of stuff.
It's really tricky because you can ruffle a lot of feathers if you're a brewery of that size and you depend that much on,
Right.
big retailers. If you start focusing on that and make that a big part of your, communications, social media, and all that, that can work against you. So that's a tricky one. It can happen. Like it depends on how the brewery does, how they're set up, because there's different kinds of top 50 breweries. Like we're at Revolution's a top 50 brewery, but we sell 90% of our beer in Illinois, Milwaukee, or Northern Indiana. I mean, so we're very local. So it's like different,
And I said beer advocate. I meant Brewers Association. I'm sorry. I just realized. Yeah,
that's just
Brewers Association top 50.
The beer advocate top 50 is just Treehouse 50 times.
It's true. Exactly. Maybe a side project in there once in a while. All right. So it's that time. This is all going down in the history books. 2021 predictions. I'm going to let everybody state their own, so I'm not going to be reading it. I'll go first. I said Goose Island has will have shown itself to yet again be a leader in the BA stout world, as limited brand specific barrel treatments catch a ride on the hype train. If it catches on, this trend could see regional and national brands competing well with smaller, more nimble breweries. And what I mean by that is I think we're seeing the a way in which maybe bigger breweries and a way that just breweries in general can shift away from adjuncts as a way to make special versions of a beer. I'm very happy Doug is on here when I'm saying this, because I said that, they've shown themselves to be industry leaders yet again and stuff like that. But I think that BCS is in this unique position, and what they've started doing a couple of years ago with their reserve series of BCS, and really now have done it more this year for 2020 with their Weller versions and their birthday bourbon from Old Forester version of BCS, is to show to make it special based on barrel treatment or something other than adjuncts being added to it. And I think that it's interesting because that can play to a big brewery who can get a lot of special barrels because of their relationships, or also maybe even a small guy can do it too because they can get something that's they only have 1 or 2 barrels of, that is too rare for a Goose Island to really bother with too much. Or there's always going to be a little bit of that stuff that slips through the cracks. Goose Island's not going to get literally every single barrel. So I think that could be a new way to drive this the tip of the spear of the flagship, the tip of the flagpole and the flagship is to have these like uber specialty barrel treatments. Maybe I could see that becoming more common. I will give a little nod to Rev, who has been doing extra long barrel treatment and stuff like that for a little bit. But I do think that Goose Island has the weight behind the BCS brand.
What you mean, the money?
Well, they do, but they also have the cachet. I mean, I'm not the one who has credited BCS with starting the pastry stout thing, but I believe, Doug, you are someone who said that you thought that BCS really started that trend. I think he did. I think he said he was the one that kind of made it.
No. Well, they made it mainstream.
Yeah. Or really, like, was the first big one that, and then a lot more started to do it. So I was thinking about that when I put my prediction together and said, you know what, they a lot of people do look to them. I think with Rare, the second time around, how it was really expensive and stuff like that. I think other breweries quickly followed suit, and you started to see some pricing rise by some breweries, and it was adopted by consumers. I'm not going to make a 1-to-1 correlation, but I do think they have some they have pull. I'll call it, Ed, for whatever reason they have that pull. So I wouldn't be surprised if special barrel treatments become the cool new thing. So we're going to do our pastry version. We're going to do a BA pastry version, but the really special one is going to be the one that's in this type of barrel.
But that was done years ago, though, Chris.
Yeah, it's all been done years ago, man. I mean, look at Southern Tier.
In terms of marketing that as a differentiator will be the thing. Fine. It was done. People were very proud of getting their Pappy barrels or Old Weller or whatever. That's always been a thing, like dorks like me, like, oh my God, we're going to get a Rittenhouse barrel?
50-50. Yeah, 50-50's been doing it forever.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Ed, but I also see what you're saying, Chris, is you're saying that these will become, the barrel treatment will re-become cooler than the pastry stout, which had overtaken the barrel. Because we all know, 50-50, this is what they did. And every bottle shop had 20 different color waxes of 50-50 in 2012. Like that had been done, but then that was like they were just too early.
Right.
In a way, like people weren't ready for what they were doing back then.
Wrong format and too expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And I think AB on the BCS side, I think they were looking at a cash cow and national distribution and just blowing the thing up, and then obviously they ran into issues on all that. But I think, like Doug, with what you're doing, real quick, I'll let you go ahead. I think, Doug, with what you guys are doing with canning and the variants and keeping it tight and small, I think Goose is going to see that, and they're going to take that and run with that too. So you guys are almost at the forefront of that. But
I think that's what they're doing with the barrel treatments too, because we were doing the barrel treatments when we switched to cans and really, upped our program in the last 4 years. That was our focus. I don't think we've ever put 2 adjuncts in a barrel aged beer once. And we were doing that while they were doing in the pastry mode. And now I totally agree with what Chris is saying. They switched, especially this year. And that seems to be what people are more interested in and what they like to talk about now, because all the combinations, not all, but so many have been done that it's becoming repetitive. And so this idea of a birthday, Old Forester birthday bourbon, that all of a sudden becomes more interesting to chat about. Whether people understand and can notice the difference or not is debatable, but it becomes a more
or whether it makes the beer better. Honestly,
right, totally.
Doesn't matter.
But it's either way. The game of collecting and tasting and trying all the craft beers is now. I agree with Chris, and I agree that they have the size and scale and reach to really push that. Whether they deserve credit for it or not, they have the ability to get it in every state in the country with people who are familiar with it and look forward to it. So
deserving credit, the crux of it is, I think that's going to be a style trend, and those are really hard to predict. So that's but I think that I'm confident with that one. So I'm feeling good about it.
I'm with you, Chris. I mean, I remember going to the National Brewers Association conference, watching 50-50 do their presentation. Here's how we made our brewery all about the one making barrel-aged beers with different brands of whiskey. And there was like 1,000 people watching this happen, right? Taking tips from these guys and how they sold their $20 to $40 bottles of beer. And I think that maybe, anyways, it doesn't really matter. I do want to give a nod to Rev as well as actually doing it right and doing a great job with their putting the barrel-aged beers in cans. It's like insane. But you know me, I love and hate the beast of AB InBev Goose Island. And you give me $10 million to come up with a great idea to market. I could make you buy anything.
You'd have one $10 million bottle of beer.
Yeah, and someone would buy it.
Someone would buy it. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to go? Who wants to go next?
I'm going to be the bummer guy, but I'm going to start off with some quick advice. Round of PPPs coming right now. Hey, brewery, apply immediately. Get your PPP money now. Second thing is, as evidenced by our survival in this marketplace in the world of 2020 that we want to forget, the diversification strategy that we started a couple years ago actually helped us hedge our ability to survive this year. And we were able to, because we make different beverages, we're able to increase the sales of those beverages and help us maintain and at least not be completely devastated this year. So I would suggest that people look at some diversification strategies, if possible, wherever you are. And then my horrible prediction is that I don't think America, based on the participation of a third of its citizens, will get through the pandemic this year until late fall and winter, if we're lucky. And that 1/3 of America will keep us in this horrible state of existence that we're in.
By that, you mean forced closures and stuff like that?
It's just the same shit.
And you're talking specifically for the beverage world. So it's going to keep those things affecting the beverage world directly, like bars and restaurants and stuff.
And the only good thing is you've already experienced how to pivot. And you've already experienced how to change your thing. But you will rely on delivery. You will rely on differentiating your products. You'll rely on your distributors. You'll rely on off-premise sales as opposed to your on-premise. So on-premise is screwed this year, Chris. Maybe a couple months they'll have some good years. But in my opinion, all those breweries that rely on that are able to pivot and go back into packaging or whatever needs to be done. So everyone's learned how they're going to be screwed. They'll probably survive this next year, but it is not going to be a great year. It's going to be as difficult and as shitty as last year.
All right. Wow. Yikes. Woof. Woof, woof, woof.
I mean,
I'll go. I don't think this year will be as bad as last year. I think it has the chance to feel, in part as crappy, but I do a lot of meat potatoes type of stuff, and I can tell you, living in the burbs, the geese migration that I've seen in the last 2 weeks is unlike anything I've ever seen.
The what? The what?
The geese, the gooses. They are going to Canada in like fast, which tells me that we're gonna have an early spring. It's gonna be a hot year. Patios are gonna be rocking and rolling. We're gonna have a lot more tools available for us to sell beer.
I love this.
Yeah, no. I'm
Love it. The nature
going.
boy.
Let them keep going.
Yeah.
I'm not blowing smoke up your pipe.
Brian, I love this. You're blowing my mind. Yes. I want to believe you.
Keep going.
So I'm shooting for June. June is going to be the month where we really are full on shorts, flip flops. Like, hey, we're all going to get through it. There's going to be a ton of rounds of vaccinations done. The second piece of it is there's definitely landscape changes. Beer festivals, art gatherings, the way we know them, are definitely going to be altered. Will they start to come back around this year? Absolutely. I think you'll see a lot of like large venues, outdoor, forest preserve type of things, disposable cups, sanitizing stations, that type of thing. But we'll start to see some venues come back, a little bit more of return to normalcy. But I think definitely the late summer, early fall from last year when everyone was utilizing their outdoors, they know what to do with that now. They've invested heavily in tents and heaters and stuff like that. So they're going to be able to operate, not full capacity, but a decent amount with outdoor stuff, hot temperatures. I'm already feeling, like I said, with the geese. I would imagine June, we're going to be feeling pretty good.
I love it. I love this, but like, you got to remember in California right now, where the weather doesn't change, they're in the worst crisis ever of the pandemic. And tourists are flooding the coast and not wearing masks. The residents are freaking out. And it's in an environment that you're speaking about right now.
I'm sorry. I don't mean the United States of America. I mean Illinois.
Okay. Because Illinois actually has a little bit more ability to wear a mask. Is that what you mean?
We're pretty tight. We've been, for the most part,
No, everything outside of Chicago is full of science deniers. What are you talking about? All right. You know what? I want to stay helpful. The geese thing blew my mind.
I love it. The nature boy.
I've got pictures on my phone.
I need a woo.
It's unbelievable. This usually happens around Valentine's Day. It's a month early this year.
Okay. Now I'm actually saying that if I want to go in your frame of where you're at, May.
Come on in.
May. I'm saying May is when the magic happens.
Flip flops in May. Is that what you're saying,
I'm
Ed?
wearing
May
a
21?
tie-dye thong.
All right. Well, you're just saying that apropos of nothing,
now,
or
Now,
yeah. Just by the way.
I will
Okay.
at that time.
I guess I would leave it as, if you're going into 2021 thinking that it's going to be as bad as 2020, you're already setting yourself up for failure.
No, I think it provides caution and allows you to be ready for disaster should it happen.
All right.
As you should always be.
Who's is it your turn, Doug?
Yeah.
All right. This is a big one. This guy can predict a thing or two.
Yeah.
Drum roll, please. We
ever
saved
hear
him
it?
for last.
Ever hear Nostradamus?
Yeah.
I'm
Nostradamus.
Douglas.
Nostradamus. Yeah, Nostradamus.
Doug's.
So mine is not about goose nor geese.
Very good.
You got an eyebrow raise. Uh-huh.
All right. So, I said this last year, but there's predictions that are like trends that are probably like bubbling up now and they're going to continue. I like to I'm going to go with another set of fun ones that will be very measurable. Like last time I either got it or I didn't. And there's going to be two, but they're related. So we're going to have two new, at least two, but I'm predicting two new entrants to the top 50 craft brewers, and they're both very interesting. One of them I made on my blog, and that's going to be Treehouse. By selling all their beer direct to consumer, Treehouse is going to become a top 50 craft brewer. They were
The first ever.
They
Right.
were number 69 last year, so there's a good bit of room to make up. But I know nothing. I know nobody there. I have no back channel conversations. But I did look at the gap they'd have to make up, and I'm just taking a wild guess that they are going to sneak into one of the last spots of the top 50.
What an amazing, I know we're short on time, but let me just say, what an amazing thing that would be if that happened.
Yeah.
That an own premise brewery broke into the top 50 craft breweries in the country.
Yeah.
And that's why if it was a brewery with
Unbelievable.
a normal model who was just moving on up, I wouldn't make it. But I find that one extra fascinating because of their model.
Totally.
So the other one that is equally as interesting, if not more interesting, I not only think Athletic Brewing is going to become a top 50 craft brewer. I don't even know if they count with the BA numbers, but let's just assume they do, and they would. But if you take their barrelage in 2021, I'm going to say, I think saying they're going to be a top 50 brewer is too easy. I'm going to say that they're going to be a top 25 craft brewer by the end of 2021 by the amount of volume they kick out next year. So they're going to be bigger than every craft brewery in the country, independent, other than 25 or so.
Incredible.
So those are my two kind of related predictions.
I would stamp the Athletic top 25, but I would want to take that to 2022. There's a little bit of a lag on the NA side. So I know they opened up a lot of states, and that definitely helps. but they're also not sending in truckloads to those states too, like a normal large brewery would do. They only send in what makes sense for that territory and for a couple months of sales. So while that probably is bolstering their numbers, they are without a doubt like the best at it right now. Just the consistency and the quality. And yes, we do sell their products in Chicago, but I was after them. I was after them 2 years ago. And I guess, we were pretty fortunate just even to land on being able to distro them in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, they've spent their time, not to go further on it, but I mean, they spent their time, they've developed their proprietary process on what they're doing. And without a doubt, it's a good thing to have. And I think just another piece of this is the NA portion of it. Like I said, I don't really think it's pulling from alcoholic beer sales. I think it's pulling people that aren't drinking alcohol into the beer world. And I think that's also going to open up and we'll be able to capitalize on that piece of the business as well. But I don't, for our industry as a whole, I don't think it's going to be bad at all. And not that you were heading that way at all, Doug. It's not going to be a bad thing at all for us to have NAs be a part of the mix moving forward for us.
My question is Athletic Brewing like brewed at Coors? Like, where the heck are they making this beer?
No, they have. They took over. I want to say it was the Ballast, one of the Ballast facilities, or sorry.
Yeah, I think it's Connecticut.
I was on the Zoom meeting for it, and I forget what building they took over, but they're SoCal originally, and they just took over. I think it's the Connecticut spot, or they were Connecticut and then took over San Diego, but they're on the East Coast. 100,000 barrel brewing capacity. And yeah, dude, I'll tell you what. We have probably 50 suppliers that we work with. And over the last 7 years that I've been doing this, I've never seen a supplier be as in front of and on top of like a rollout and the support of their products as I've seen with Athletic. It's been phenomenal.
No, I see it and I'm like blown away. I mean, I was always a big fan for NA beers after I saw McKellar's first little shandy they make. We can't make them. We don't know how to make them.
McKellar does great. Brewdog, is making waves. They got a nice little 12 mix pack out there.
Yeah. I still have the label, and it's called Proximity Ale. But yeah, but Athletic, I thought it was for sure like a weird, crafty brewery, or they're set up to be purchased by one. That's for sure.
I thought that too, but the way I thought that too, and I was hesitant. But the way that they're designed and the way that they're rolling, I don't see it happening.
Now, I haven't had one. Do they at least taste all right?
Yeah, we'll send you some tomorrow.
For real? Thanks. Yeah. I'd love some because I don't know where to get it.
I ordered some online, Ed. Delivered to my house, $20.
Shut up.
I Googled if there was a code. I bought a coffee stout and their IPA. And it's free shipping if you buy 2 6-packs. Sorry, Brian, I'm not trying to, you can cut this, Chris. I'm not trying to steal Brian's business. But no, it was, you could get, if you Google a coupon code, I was able to get 2 6-packs to my door in about 6 days for $20.50, something like that.
It's pretty good.
No, you're not stealing any thunder. Heineken and Bud Zero, I think, have market domination right now due to distribution points. But outside of that, we'll have 4 of the top 5 craft NAs in-house this year.
Good for you, man. That's great to hear. Well done.
Great job.
That's really awesome to hear, Brian.
I also want to say my prediction for 2021 is that Heartland is going to be one of the top big boys of independent craft distribution.
God, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope that prediction becomes true.
This guy right here worked his butt off, and he's making an amazing company, and we have to be really proud of all the work he's done. Like, if I were to choose a distributor, young man, it would be you. You're amazing.
Thanks, Ed.
I'm really proud of what you've done. You're kicking butt. You've helped so many independent craft breweries out. Everyone's got to love you, man. You're the best.
We need you more than ever. Yep. We need the beer world needs Heartland Beverage and people like them more than ever. I know it's been this like people say, well, you should get into the distribution game was like the thing that like dork insiders would say, years ago. And I count you, Ed, and myself in that. But it's so true now, but you need to be a real distributor. We are desperate. Start looking into the import game again, guys. It's there. Their imports, people like them. If they can get them, they drink them. I know drinking local is good, but there's some really high quality, wonderful people making wonderful beer all over the world that deserves to be drank as well.
There's a lot of brands that I visited in 2012 when I was starting this thing, that really wouldn't give me the time of day. And now they're leaving the distributors that they signed with. And they're like, hey, you know what? We just want to be relevant. We don't care about the barrelage, per se. We just want to be relevant and have our beer be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's what we've always been about. That's what we'll always be about.
Yeah.
I just wish I had more money to buy, the brand rights for all these guys that want to move. But it's what it needs to be. There needs to be trials and tribulations. And we just, I said from the very beginning, we just want to do right. We buy beer that we like to drink, and we want to sell to places where we want to buy it from or drink it at. And that's our MO.
All right.
Not that this matters, but I've never heard anyone dog you guys ever.
Are you on TikTok?
No, but I know that we have a big TikTok celebrity here, but they're dogging you on TikTok?
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Oh man. Sorry about
Are
that.
you serious, or was that a good joke?
It was
Ed.
mostly for Doug, because I know he wanted to start his own TikTok thing up
Ed.
last year.
Ed,
I think
come
that
on.
was your 2020 prediction, Doug, was TikTok.
That might have been my best, because
Yeah.
I put that thing out in December, and it was TikTok explodes or something like that.
It did, man. It saved America.
All right. Well, any final words, guys? Ed, you've already given your final word.
So many final words.
Your final word was about how great Heartland is. So, anything else, guys?
No.
Anything else to wrap up this
Hey,
2020?
another massage that you would enjoy, Chris. If there's any retailer in Illinois or Chicago that figured out how to pivot and work hard to make sure they serve their guests and their customer base, number 2 guy is the Beer Temple, Chris Quinn.
Oh, who's number one? You?
Number 1, unfortunately, I'd have to say, is a small chain. Foxtrot figured out their trick. Foxtrot basically proved to their investors and their .com money that they were right.
Yeah. No, Foxtrot absolutely
Right? You
killed
would
it.
disagree with me.
No, I don't know if I'm number 2. I will say, I was talking with Rady Crabtree. What?
What do you mean you are number 2?
Oh yeah, fine. Yeah, I'm number 2. People call me number 2 all the time. I guess it's a compliment.
You do online tastings. You're working with different organizations and groups you've never worked with in order to do these tastings, to supply local brew to people all over the goddamn country. Yes.
I will say we had banks talking to us about the second round of PPP, which you were saying to get on and stuff like that. We're not eligible for it. And I'm very proud of that. And that money can go to other places that need it. And so, yeah, we've been very fortunate. But thank you for the kind words, Ed. Any other final things? It's very late, so I apologize. That's what happens when you fall asleep and miss your own damn show. See, that wouldn't happen if Studio B was open, but hopefully 2021.
You would have a Phil's Italian beef with giardiniera in your mouth right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Healthy living. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Always fun to do the show when we have guests like this, but this is also an especially fun show. We will see you for the next episode, whenever that is, of the Beer Temple Insiders Roundtable. And thank you guys so much. So long. Thanks, guys. All right.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted.